Hey, what's up, everybody? So, we're going to talk about, if anybody is in chat, we're going to talk about accessibility today. Because there's a lot of stuff that I need to discuss and how important it is. But first, let me do just a couple things real quick. Just to get, because it's not on the ball today. If you're in chat, give me a shout out, say hi. Let me do one thing real quick here. All right. So, first of all, I want to address the elephant in the room. This is from a tweet I saw earlier today. I'm not going to say who it is. I'm not even going to say, I don't want people dogpiling, piling on, whatever term you want to use. But this blueprint we have here is something missing on it. If anybody can tell me, if you're in chat, what's missing from that list, you'll have my undying love. And I'll wait. I'm not mad. I'm not even angry. It doesn't surprise me. There's something missing from this list. If this is an 80-20 blueprint to become a freelancer, please, somebody, for the love of God, tell me how anybody can succeed without that one thing I'm looking for on this list. Been working 20 hours from Monday, got deadlines on these sites this Friday. Been working 20 hours straight? Wow. Not JavaScript. I'll give everybody a few more minutes. There's one thing that I guess I'm kind of known for now that I've been preaching about it for a little while now, that is missing from this list, that I was not even shocked that it wasn't on this list, but I said, this thing is missing from this list, and that's huge. This person who tweeted this also said, why is it huge? That social skills. Yeah, that's also missing from the list, but no. Accessibility. And it's something very rare that I see developers what's the word I'm looking for? It's very rare that I see developers mention that in their toolboxes. They have accessibility in their toolbox. Kindness. That's lacking too, yeah. Yeah. No, it is accessibility. Let's see. What was nearly 40% of the world's population has a disability. Then you're also, it's not even just disabilities like cognitive or motor skills or vision or blindness. It's also somebody off in a remote corner of the world who does not have internet, who has 2G internet, who has very limited access to internet. So that's what's missing from this list. I don't know. I've never used AdWords. I've never used social media ads. And to be honest, I don't even know what CRO is. So if anybody can tell me what CRO is, that'd be great. UX UI I use all the time. SEO, that's a whole different stream. I think that's, well, nowadays it's a lot better than it used to be, because it used to be just a bunch of snake oil salesmen. But I've never used AdWords, social media ads. Design, of course, should be. Design is helpful. Then I'm the Pope, because if you're a freelancer, you need to know design. And with that, you need to know color theory. And with that, you need to know accessibility, because there are color contrast issues that become accessibility issues. So that's kind of what I was getting at with this whole thing. HTML, CSS, minimum requirements. Yeah, JavaScript is missing from that, because I would consider nowadays JavaScript to be a minimum requirement as well. WordPress, you know, I used WordPress for 17 years, and you don't need to know it. Conversion rate, I don't know. Let's look it up. No, I didn't want to go to Crowdcast, but it's not in there anyways for some reason. CRO. Contract researcher? No, that's can't be it. I hope it's not crypto. Jesus, I hope it's not crypto. Because you don't need to know that. I think I might have done a little too wide of a search. I don't know. If anybody knows what CRO is, that would be my guess is conversion rate too, but I don't know if you need to know that. And then these advanced, okay, advanced. Niching down. Negotiation, you should know right from the get-go. Negotiation, you should know how to get paid, how to get what you're worth right from the outset. Because if you don't, if you do stuff and you're going to be like me, looking back on my first 2 years of freelancing out of 21 was I sold myself short and I didn't charge enough. So you need to know right from the outset how to negotiate. And conversion rate optimization, okay, cool. Conversion rate optimization is helpful for what? It's like, how is that helpful? Outsourcing. let's go back to negotiation for a minute. And I'm going to put this in the chat. And if you're a freelancer, whoops, summed it again. If you're a freelancer, let me know in the chat too. Because this is the video that if I can find it. This is the video that woke me up to get what you're worth and make sure that you have some sort of contract in place. What year was that? That was 2011, I think it was. Or maybe even before that. There we go. Alright, so anyways, I'm getting off topic here. If the numbers are, let me pull up. The numbers from last year alone, $61 million adults in the U.S. alone, and nearly 40% of the population worldwide have a disability. Then you have 2 billion people worldwide total. 10% of Americans have an invisible disability. Mine and a lot of other people's being migraines, which is a vestibular disorder. Basically, I can't look at the screen when I get a migraine. And if I'm working and I get a migraine and I have to work and I'm squinting, I can barely see a thing. Never mind the aura that I'm seeing when I do try to open my eyes. So there's a lot of discussion to be had about accessibility, which is what more and more people are trying to accomplish in the accessibility space. So I'm not trying to tell this person, hey, I'm not trying to be a dick about it, basically is what I'm saying. It's, hey, you forgot one thing, accessibility. Accessibility is real important. I don't know about anybody else. I'm not disabled, I'm just doing Jesus Christ. No, I don't think you still. Do you do web development? AO? Because if you do web development, you're not stupid. I mean, sometimes I have my moments, which are more than a few, but I look at this list and it lacks two big things: JavaScript, but the big one is accessibility. WordPress can go right off the minimum requirements. You don't need to know WordPress anymore. You can use some sort of static site generator. You can use Next.js. You can use Gatsby if you want. You can use, 11, which is what I use. And you don't need to have Word. I stopped doing WordPress just because I started learning Jekyll, because I was so sick and tired of the WordPress sites that I had developed getting hacked, and they were getting hacked all the time. And then I had to patch that with plugin, or take time out of my schedule to create a plugin for it. I was tired of it, so I mean, WordPress is still big. Don't get me wrong; it's a fine tool. You don't need it. You don't need a tool. You don't need a CMS with a database if you have a small blog, for instance. I mean, it's overkill. Okay, so over 20 years, full stack in design, so you're not stupid, okay? You're not stupid. You know your thing. How many people in chat uh, regularly practice accessibility? I'm I'm interested to know. And don't get me wrong, I don't do it all the time either. I have to go back to things and say, "Oh, I forgot to do this," or "I forgot to do that." So I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not saying that I'm, the poster child for accessibility, because I'm not. Hey Jay, how you doing? You follow inclusive components design. I have seen that, but I didn't bookmark that. Yeah, I've seen this. I love this. So I'm going to bookmark it now. Thanks for the link. Yeah, the site is great. I'm doing okay. I'm still This is kind of unplanned, but I saw this tweet and I went, no, no, this is a good topic for a stream for an hour. I'm still in the middle of this funk that I just seem to not be able to shake. So I don't know. Just wake up. I haven't even done any serious work really, in about 2 weeks. Yeah, the WCAG is one of the good places. I have a bunch of stuff in my bookmarks. I should probably share those. I'll actually tweet all that stuff out at some point. That's the problem with clients. They want their site, not wanting to pay for accessibility so many times. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll try to get it in there for the money, even if the client doesn't want to pay. Well, yeah, I usually, when I am trying to educate a client in accessibility, I tell them right out of the gate that it's part of the workflow. It's because HTML is accessible by default. I mean, there's a few things that need work, yes, and they're working on that. The WCAG group, the W3C groups are working on that. I'm in the silver group and the functional needs group, and those people are amazing because they're working their asses off. Um, and from what I've been a part of, is exciting, and I think it's going to get better and benefit more people. Um, but yeah, a lot of people, especially stakeholders, Well, why do we need accessibility? Well, if you're shutting, you know, if you get a product that sells worldwide, you're shutting out at least almost 40% of the population if your site or your mobile app is not accessible. So I'm gonna shut that off. I had a guy tell me, you know, well, we don't have disabled users, and I almost fell out of my chair um, because it was just so wrong on every level. And the guy was wearing eyeglasses, and I said, "Well, you do know you're using assistive technology with those eyeglasses on you have." And it was like an epiphany happened right there in front of me. I don't know, but I think a person with 20,000 followers giving out that advice needs to really think that, well, maybe I ought to reel that in and do a lot better. Maybe. I don't know. Do a little better. Do you consider making websites working on IE7 as accessibility? I actually, if it has to be on legacy browsers, yes, accessibility is important. I mean, I don't know what whoever so and so is using in a country, that has very basic internet, um, say on the level of dial-up speeds, and what computer they're using. I mean, they could be on a 10, 15-year-old computer that's been refurbished a couple times, and they have like I said, a 56K type connection, and it's very, very slow. They still need to, and it's a human right as well. It's been recognized by the UN as a basic human right, the internet. So they need to if they need to access the internet, they should be able to. So yeah, I would say yes. If you use IE7, you have a problem. Well, as we know, most I shouldn't say most, financial institutions like banks, um, what else? What am I trying to think of here? Banks, government, they use older systems. Um, I had an instance not too long ago. Somebody was still using IE9, I believe. So I don't develop anything older for anything less than IE11 now. And pretty soon I won't be doing anything for IE11 at all because they're going to phase that out. So companies, governments, they need to all step up and say, we got to find a way to upgrade our systems to catch up. I worked with a company that just upgraded a system from 15-year-old database servers and 15-year-old ASP code, and it broke everything when a back-end developer did not. They used grids, they used CSS grid layout, they used named regions and divs with all IDs, and they didn't have any fallbacks for IE11, so they broke everything in IE11 that was working. If you will try making it work, probably you would use older HTML. You shouldn't cut accessibility out at all. And HTML5 you can use as you did XHTML 1.0 or HTML 4.0. It's not about the HTML. It's, for me, it's about knowing how to make what you're doing accessible. Because we're not the user. We're not that other person on the other side of the glass, so to speak. We are we're making things for other people to use. So we have to put ourselves on the other side of the glass as well. We just can't pump something out and say, oh, it's all done. Looks good for me. Without having to do some testing, without having to, say, running it through Axe Beta, for instance, or like with this site you're seeing here, I use the Wave extension, and that will bring up, see, I have 9 contrast errors that I have to fix. And those are way down here on, where are they? Well, there's a few, oh, where'd they go? Yeah, the black text on these images, for instance, that's something I have to fix. So there are plenty of tools that devs can use to help aid in the process of making things accessible, making websites accessible, making apps accessible. It's possible. It's right. There's it's no longer, I guess, it's not going to benefit you or me if I sit there and berate everybody and, shake my fists and say, you need to be doing this. This is, that's not going to cut it. Educating people about it and making devs aware that, but I will judge you. I will go to your website and I will look at your website. And if you have a plethora of problems, accessibility related, I know that you may not be aware of accessibility. But I'm not gonna be a dick about it. I mean, people, like, for instance, this guy that I was talking to that said they don't have disabled users. So what if somebody comes in to work for the day, has a broken arm? Like, I'm right-handed. What if I break my right hand and I have to use my left hand? I'm not going to be good with my left hand because I'm not left-handed. I'm going to be typing slower. What if I need to just use the keyboard for accessing, like many people do? There are assistive technologies for Braille users. There are assistive technologies for sip and puff users. There are assistive technologies for joystick users. So remembering all those people and not forgetting them. I mean, and there's many, many more. I mean, you have blind users that use screen readers. So, I mean, that's a large chunk of the population. And companies don't realize that when you shut these people out, you're going to lose money. And I would think for companies, if you want to make money, you'll make things accessible for everybody. That's just me. I don't know. Doing some work with daisy.org. Only when you've been inside that information room and some big daisy. Daisy is an international non-profit membership organization working with over 150 partners all around the world with access to people with print disability. That's great. And as a matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to pull that up. And I will give that a read later on. That looks very interesting. Thank you for dropping that link in the chat. So in your toolbox, I'm not saying that accessibility is a bad thing. No, I'm not saying you did. It has to be, but it's kind of ideal in real developed world. People usually have limited budgets for something. What you as the developer are doing a project and they quote unquote don't have the budget for accessibility, here's what I do. Well, I mentioned a little bit earlier, I said accessibility is part of the process. There is time to be set aside for accessibility. I always do that. Nobody has ever had a problem with it. If anybody does have a problem with it, then they need to take it more seriously. They need to be educated a little bit more. There needs to be a little bit more pushback. So you say, well, accessibility is already baked in, but we need to test to make sure it's accessible. And then if they're still not convinced, you want to tell them, well, you don't. I mean, I've used this card plenty of times before, too. I would say, well, you want to wind up like a Domino's pizza and get sued, that's fine with me. You're looking at an accessibility audit, a company to come in, audit your website, and you could be spending 6 figures. And usually, the ones that have resisted up to that point, they usually fall in line right away. Accessibility for me, it's important. It's very important. So, that's the method I use. Push back a little bit more if they come back, and then if they want to keep on resisting, you drop the Domino's pizza card. And there are other companies that have got there's over 2,500 lawsuits in the U.S. alone last year. And mainly those were banks and government organizations. Actually, yeah. New York and Florida were the two top states that had the most lawsuits. HTML is accessible for the most part by default. Yeah, you're going to need to have an ARIA role maybe here or there. HTML5 has landmarks with the main, the aside, the section, header, footer. So there shouldn't be too many clients that push back because you don't even have to tell them. You can just do the job and put it in the process. But I tell people all the time, accessibility is part of the project. Here's the hours that I want, and 9.99999 times out of 10, I I don't get any pushback whatsoever. So, I mean, and when you practice accessibility, you take that into your personal projects. And for me, when I started to do more of that a few years ago, I actually felt better about the projects I was doing outside of work that people could access. And I don't know. I don't know. But I don't want to shut anybody out. That's the bottom line. I don't want to shut anybody out. There was a tweet a while back from someone who said that her father had called her and had asked for her to help him use the computer because he couldn't access something because it was inaccessible. And the woman who tweeted this had mentioned her father started to cry. I don't want anybody feeling that way, feeling like they're not wanted because of something that I didn't do to make that accessible. That's that's the bottom line. That tweet resonated with me. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions. Go ahead, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to take a looky here at my style stage stuff for a few minutes. And we cry enough while coding. Yes, yes, we do. Oh, yes, we do. At least twice a day for me when I'm working. And Jay, if you're still in chat, um, the 7th. I don't know if the 7th works for you, but I think maybe uh, a live stream if you're available on the 7th. Let me know. And I can explain to you now, if you're still in chat, what I'd like to do. So let me know if you're still in chat. It's hot. And if you need any links to resources or testing tools, let me know in the chat as well. I'll be more than happy to direct you to those tools. And the last time I actually did some coding was 2 weeks ago, and yeah, I did my fair share of crying. I did an inordinate amount of crying. I was doing a bunch of CSS stuff, and I was also doing some React stuff. With the React stuff, I was making the React app accessible. So, accessibility resources. Where do we start? Well, let's start here. If you go to a11yproject.com, you will find a great resource in how to get started. Buy this book, Accessibility for Everyone by Laura Kalbag, because it is great. There is a lot of resources here. As you can see, this is a pretty comprehensive resource. I have more. If you're looking for specifics, I can hopefully give you more. If not, I can find out those specific resources. But I guess the point of this whole stream tonight was me kind of pleading to people, developers, please don't shut anybody up. Your React apps can be accessible. Your Vue apps can be accessible. Your Angular apps can be accessible. You name it, it can be accessible. It takes a little bit more time, yes. It's worth it in the end. I've rarely met a developer who said, well, that wasn't worth it, after working with them to make sure something that they were working on was accessible. And if they do say, that wasn't worth it, well, I mean, there's plenty of those out there too. And I've come across those too. I mean, not everybody is on the accessibility train, unfortunately. And we need more people to be on that accessibility train. It's like when you see people posting the pictures of code on Twitter. Those aren't accessible most of the time. If they don't have alt text, they're not accessible. And they're not accessible if they don't have a link to a GitHub gist or somewhere where there's an example, an explanation of that code. Making my bed accessible for sleeping now. Take care. Well, you too. Thanks for stopping by, AO. I'm hopefully soon to be junior dev. Struggle a little bit with ARIA, for example. Making sure modal is fully accessible. The best rule I've heard for ARIA is from Bruce Lawson. And he told me when I asked, I kind of had a hunch, but I asked him anyways. I said, what's a good rule behind ARIA or whatever? I asked him. And he said, the first rule of ARIA Fight Club is don't use ARIA, which is true. You want to use ARIA sparingly. I mean, there are examples where ARIA is needed. Did I use it on my site? Let's see if I used it on my site. I don't think I did, but I might have. Oh, you know what? I bet I used it on the contact form, maybe? Now, granted, you want to have, your role, like, the header role equals banner. We have those. Let's see if I used... So there is an aria labeled by. I mean, those are the examples that I can show you that aria. Yes, you're going to use aria in this instance. Aria required equals true. But yeah, best, the best. First rule of aria Fight Club: don't use aria. That's perfect. So yeah. Let's see other resources. This one's probably the best one I found in a long time, but let's look at, oh, I got one. Color contrast, that's a big one. When making designs and colors, I use this from Leah Varu, contrast ratio. I'll put that in the chat. Contrastratio.com. Oh, let's go yellow. Because this is a classic example. Don't do this. For the love of all, don't do this. Yellow on white background doesn't work, and neither does the opposite. And I've run across that before. I've also run across this before. Don't do that. Please don't do that. For color, I tell anybody, you want that number, that 1.86 now, you want that to be above a 4.5 or better. When you do a test, say for, okay, let's go here and we're going to go, well, no, let's do this because I don't have anything right there right now. Double A is just passing as far as WCAG goes. You have A, you have double A, you have triple A. Go for triple A. And whatever you do, go for the triple A. Get that piece of the whatever you're working on triple A compliant. I've seen too many people struggle with making it double A compliant and having a big, huge problem with it, getting frustrated and just giving up. Go for triple A. Don't limit yourself to double A. I've seen seen this. I've seen that. Yellow on white. I've seen that. Yeah, but this is a great resource to test out, and it takes name colors. It takes RGB colors. Oops. It does RGBA. So, and I believe it does HSL and HSLA as well. But yeah. And what are we coming up on? We're coming up on the hour. If anybody else has any other questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Try to answer them anyways. with RGBA for background, it's kind of useless. Yes, it is. Yes. That's not a great example, but yes. And with color contrast as well, text, if it's small, is different from text that is large as far as ratio goes, but always aim for 4.5 to 1 as far as the ratio goes. Text on components like buttons, as you can see in this one right here, and let me just do this. Let me take that off. And let me take that off. So this text right here, yes, I can see that. Text on components like buttons, other components, that's different too as far as color contrast goes. And with colors 5, I believe, the scoring is going to change. So when I find that out, matter of fact, let's do this. Everything's running slowly. Where is his... Adam, where is your slides for London CSS? That's what I thought. Color level 5. Color level 4, color level 5. Contrast 3.0, excuse me, not color 5. AA and AAA are going to merge into one guideline, so that's going to change things a bit. But yeah, that's all I got for color contrast right now. So with the few minutes I got left tonight, I'm just asking people, if you have questions, let me know. If I can't answer those questions about accessibility, I will find somebody who can. Definitely. You can, if you're on Twitter, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm there most of the time. That's where I take most of the accessibility questions. Matter of fact, all of them. It's at Todd Libby, TODDLIBBY is my handle. You can follow me there. Ask me any question you have on accessibility. I will find that out for you. Just begging developers, please, please be inclusive with your design and development, and take the time to recognize that you're not the user, and that you realize that there are the other people on the other side of the screen that are using what you use, and they may not be perfect vision, or There might be a cognitive issue, or there might be a vestibular issue, or there might be a motor skill issue, and they really want to use your app, but they can't. So take that into consideration and be inclusive uh, as far as accessibility goes, because in the long run, everybody wins. That's just more people liking your app, liking your website, and it's a win-win for everybody. I got a couple minutes. If there are no more questions, then that's going to be it. I'm going to sign off for the night. But I am appreciative of everybody that showed up tonight. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the chat. This was a short, kind of impromptu stream. So, I'm glad to hear that, Gabby. Thank you very much for coming in tonight. So I'll stick around for a little bit longer. I got a couple things I got left to do on here. That's not done yet, though. That's going to be for another day. Accessibility is so important. It affects everyone. I wear no glasses, and there are pages around that I can't read. There's a lot to be done in the accessibility regard. Yes, there is a lot to be done. It is a never-ending. It's a never-ending battle. But there are a lot of people who are working very hard and tirelessly in the accessibility space. So if you're on, like, I can suggest people to follow on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, let me know. If you follow me, say, hey, was in your chat, hook me up with some people to follow, and I will let you have those names of those people to follow that are in the accessibility space on Twitter, because they are some very talented and bright people. Hey Tanner, how you doing tonight? I was actually just about ready to sign off because it's been an hour. But you know what? I have another. I'll go another half hour. How's that? Another half hour. If anybody's got any questions on accessibility, let me have them. I am here for. I'll push it out another half hour. I do have something I have to do in an hour, so I gotta get ready for that. But another half hour, another 30 minutes. How you doing today, Tanner? I am doing the best I can. Doing the best I can. Saw a tweet that kind of made me think, and I had to go and stream about it and have a little, have some chat with some people. But Gabby, you follow me, okay? Maybe a tweet with all the accessibility must follows would be a nice thing. Plus, also to retweet. I will do that. As a matter of fact, I'll have to dig for it later. I used to do something similar to, and I don't know if anybody in here is old enough to remember the Late Show with David Letterman and the top 10 list. Well, I was doing something similar and putting a spin on it as far as tech goes. I have some accessibility lists I did, and I will dig for those, and I will retweet those, Gabby. Congrats on the 1K followers. Thanks. The news was broke yesterday. As far as the Twitter followers goes, there was much rejoicing on my side, and there was much, how can I put it? There was a lot of crying on the other side. My punishment hasn't been decided yet. I was going to do something, but I decided to rethink it, and I'm still deciding on what the punishment will be, but I don't have to drink hot sauce, so that's great. And it's not just hot sauce. It was 6 million Scoville hot sauce, which is, I'd try it, but I wouldn't want to drink it. But thank you. I appreciate it. Did you see the Big Lobster roll picture? Because boy, oh boy, that one was... It wasn't tough to get through, surprisingly. And I had my own cheering section at the restaurant, which was fun. But yeah, I have a blast when I do that. And I miss that so much. I hadn't done that all year because of, what's going on. So it was nice to do that. Be safe. Everywhere I went, people were being super good about wearing masks and social distancing for the most part. So I'm kind of doing a little 14-day quarantine, self-quarantine now, just to be on the safe side. That lobster roll was very tasty. Hey Todd, appreciate you sticking around. I was late to the show. I've been thinking about the convo I had with my professor last night. It seems to feel like it's right for opportunistic lawyers and too expensive to invest in upfront. It made me so sad to hear. I would love some talking points for how accessibility benefits all of us and how it can be a worthwhile business expense. So I did mention this earlier. With the clients that I have, and I have rarely had a client push back, but I will get to the ones that have pushback in a bit. What I do is basically I go to the client and say, here's what we have. Here are the ideas I have for the website or for the app. Accessibility is a must. I'm throwing it in there. I'm making time. Let's just say 10 hours, 20 hours, whatever. That's in that has to be in there. That is non-negotiable. And here's why. And then I educate the client as to, 2 billion people in the world have some sort of disability, whether it's invisible or whether it's an invisible one, like I have migraines. That's considered a vestibular disorder. So whether it's a invisible disability, whether it's cognitive, whether it's a motor skill disorder, whether it is blindness, color blindness, which color blindness isn't necessarily being totally blind, but those kinds of things. I tell the people I talk to, you don't want to shut those people up. And if it's somewhere, we're not worldwide. Well, you still got, what was it? I just had that number. 60, 61. I think it was 61 million people in the U.S. alone with a disability. So you're still, and if it's a business, you also want to tell them you don't want to shut any potential um, money making opportunity out by excluding people from, if people can't access your website, if they can't use the keyboard, you don't want to lose customers, or you don't want to lose potential customers. If there's pushback, I tell them, well, accessibility is baked into the HTML, and that usually will turn people to, okay, that's fine. If I have those very, very few that have pushed back even after that, I pull out the Domino's Pizza card. I said, well, if you want to be sued like Domino's Pizza, and as far as I know, they haven't had this done, but other companies have. I think Target had something similar done to them, as far as they had to pay a company to come in and do an accessibility audit that cost them 7 figures. Usually when somebody hears it's going to cost you 7 figures, they're going to normally break right down and say, well, okay, I don't want to get sued. So yeah, kind of, he's got the opportunistic lawyer stuff right, but at the same time, it's usually the company that made the website or made the app is going to be the ones getting sued. So the opportunistic lawyers are going to be coming at them instead of, the other way around. That's what I would tell them. If they push back a little harder. Why would you want to shut out a certain segment of the population when there is, income for the company waiting to come in? That doesn't make sense. Blind people, if they need to use a screen reader, should be able to use a screen reader on the site. Are you trying? And I would even go as far, and I have actually, as saying, are you trying to tell me you don't want somebody who's blind using your product that can use your product? You're just going to shut them out? You don't want their money? So that's my take on what the professor should say. That's what the professor should hear. Nice menu. Oh, you mean this menu up here with all the lobsters on it? There is absolutely no reason anybody should say that's too much of an expense. So if you have a project, okay, and let's say it's going to take 6 months, and you want to test with people who are blind, who have some sort of disability, and that's going to eat up 40 hours, there should be no problem with doing that, I would think. It's a week. It's at one business week out of 6 months. And I've run into that before. I'm kind of cut and dry when I say there's no excuse why there should be anybody saying that there's not enough time, there's not enough in the budget. But that's my take on it. And I've convinced people to change their mind. I've also not convinced people to change their mind. The people that don't want to change their mind, I won't do the project, and I haven't. I've actually refused projects before because they've refused to budge on we're not going to give any time on for accessibility. I said, well, then I'm not the man for you, for the job, because I'm not being exclusive. For some, they do not need clients with disabilities, so they do not. But, so that goes back to the guy that told me they don't have disabled users, because there's such thing as temporary disability. When you have a child in your lap, and that child is, getting out of control, or they want to get down, or they're fussy, that's a temporary disability. A broken arm, that's a temporary disability. Eyeglasses, like I said earlier, eyeglasses are a assistive technology. Here's a good example, and I'm going to use myself as the test case. I was in my car, and I went out to grab some stuff at the store, and I went and got a pizza. And on my way back, the sun's shining in my eyes, so I went to pull on the sun visor in the car, and when I did, I yanked my hand too hard back, and I socked myself in the eye. And I got home, and it took me twice as long to get in the house. And I had to keep on working. I wasn't done working for the day, and I had to work with one eye that was pretty much sealed shut, and I had a ice pack on it. That's a temporary disability. Not saying that everybody's going to sock themselves in the eye, but how would we approach to solve these temporary disabilities? Well, don't sock yourself in the eye when you're in your car, and putting down your sun visor is one. If you have a child, and it's a fussy child, of course, you're going to give the child a mom. You're going to give the child to the other parent, or what's the word I'm looking for? Partner. Let the child run around too, so you can do your work. I mean, those are temporary disabilities. I have done the stupidest stuff before. Socking myself in the eye hasn't been the worst. You can't really. Temporary disabilities are those disabilities where you don't see those coming. So there's not really much to do except to go with the flow. You don't know if you're gonna, poke yourself in the eye, or you don't know that child is gonna get fussy and sock you in the nose, and now you got watery eyes, and you got to take a few minutes to, get your wits about yourself. And those are all things that have happened to me, yes. Rest in peace, single parents. Well, mine are all grown up and out of the house, so that's a good thing. I mean, you can state your case for accessibility not being important in some cases, but I have to respectfully disagree. It's important in all cases, every case. Start a personal project and practice accessibility in that project, whether it's a website or an app. Just do it. Just make sure you've covered all your bases with as far as accessibility goes, and then see from there. I mean, that's what I tell everybody that I talk to. Start a project. Start a personal side project. Make it 100% accessible. Don't settle for AA. Go for AAA on the WCAG, AAA, and see how you like it. That was all about awareness and accessibility. Not sure I follow you as far as being aware is just you're not the user, and there's someone on the other side of the glass that is the user. So you don't know if that user has a disability or not, and you don't know what that disability is. So take into consideration those disabilities, those with disabilities. Tanner, that's what I've been doing since I'm not working professionally yet. Just keep on grinding, you know. Um, you'll get there. This is the society we should be working towards, and devs seem to have a special opportunity to help make that happen. Seeing all people as valid and viable. Wow, how far could we go? Yeah, we could go very far. But unfortunately, I don't know if anybody has seen the Web A Million survey, which analyzed the top million homepages. Where is it? Across the 1 million homepages, over 60 million distinct accessibility errors were detected, an average of 60.9 errors per page, and the number of errors increased 2.1% between February 2019 and February of this year, 2020. Homepage complexity increased 10.4% in 12 months, from an average of 782 elements per page to 864. This indicates that 7% of all homepage elements had a detectable accessibility error. Users with disabilities would expect to encounter detectable errors on 1 in every 14 homepage elements with which they engage. And Tanner, I don't know. I dropped it in the chat earlier, but I'll drop it again. I don't know if you've seen Leah Verou's contrast checker, but it's the best. Drop that again for you. Interior pages had 53 errors on average and over 1,000 elements on average. 13% fewer errors, but 20% more page elements than home pages. 1 in every 19.6 elements of interior pages would be expected to introduce an accessibility issue. So, which means 98.1% of home pages had detectable WCAG2 failures. This was up from 97.8 in February of 2019. That says it all. For me, anyways. That it's just getting worse. And part of that, I'm not blaming it all on that, but part of it is this inundation of JavaScript everything. Here's your typical failures. Most common types of WCAG2 failures. Little contrast. Text, missing alt text. And alt text is a tricky thing. I even just ran into a project that I was having an issue with as far as alt text go, whether it was you have your informative images, you have your decorative images, and you have images that, there's one other one, and I can't think of the word right. Informative. Or did I already say that? Decorative, informative, and there's a third one. For alt text. Of course, decorative images don't need an alt text. Alt text can be empty if it's decorative. Alt text needs to be descriptive. Then you have on this chart empty links, missing form input labels, empty buttons, and a missing doc language, which I see a lot. I can't, like, oh, you know, let me pull this up. You got your doc language, you know, right here. You can even do English US. You can even do English GB for Great Britain. You can do ES for Spanish. So yeah, and I mean there's more. So I don't know about intentional. The thing is this: you have certain people, and I'm not naming names, I'm not pointing fingers, but those people are teaching who they teach how to do things their way when it comes to development. And a lot of times that does not include accessibility. I know people that have tens of thousands of followers on Twitter, and I don't know how many followers on Twitch. They might even have tens of thousands of followers on, you know, all their social media, whatever. And they're teaching them the same thing, but it doesn't include accessibility. And that's the problem. These people learn that, and then they teach somebody else. And then that vicious cycle keeps going and going and going. And all these people are learning stuff, but they're not learning accessibility. Websites should have an easy flow to understand and not require more than 5 or 10 minutes to understand where the information is looking for. Exactly right. That's part of the UX. That's part of the user experience as well. We all have the attention span, which is less than, what was it, a hamster or something, right? 3 seconds and we're gone. We're off to something else. So you want to hold your visitors on your site or your app. You better make it accessible. College websites are a good example, yes. But there are also a lot of college websites that are coming around and that I've seen, and they are becoming more user-friendly. The usability is getting a lot better. The UX is getting a lot better, and the accessibility is getting a lot better. Because colleges and universities were a big offender, and kind of still are, on the accessibility front. I did throw that in there. Yes, Tanner. Let's go back to that real quick here. I did that as like a little, you know, you can do it. And I don't think so. If you click that, you come here and boom, gives you the report. Now on the inside pages, let's see if things are still okay. Because I just don't know. Perfect. That's just one, but yeah, maybe that. I've actually gotten a couple people who have said they like that, and they actually started doing accessibility because of that. So that makes me feel good. That makes me feel good. Somebody saw that and said, I'm gonna do that too. Now, what country are you in, Clear? Romania. Okay. You've got a lot of great developers and a lot of great designers over there, but a lot of UX and accessibility is lacking. But I over 21 years doing this, I've seen a lot of good stuff come out of where you are, your Romania, and in that region of Europe. And then a lot of talent over there too. So it's getting down to about the last minute where I'm going to have to head off. I don't know if anybody else has any more questions or comments. Please let me know. And if so, if not, I'm going to sign off for the evening. And this turned out a lot better than I thought. So I want to thank everybody who stopped by. And if you're not following me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at Todd Libby. If you have any questions whatsoever about accessibility, please ask. If I don't know, I will find somebody who knows. Hey, Tanner, have a good night as well. Thank you very much for dropping by and coming in. 001, thank you. And you're very welcome. I appreciate the questions. Clear, have a good night. Take care as well. And for everybody else, I want to thank you for stopping in. And that's it for tonight. Wow. Come back. I might be back tomorrow. Who knows? And yeah, if you want one of these shirts, let me just drop it in the chat real quick. Go buy a shirt. Accessibility is a right, not a privilege. This is going to let me. There we go. There's the link if you want a shirt, many different sizes and colors. As for me, I'm out of here. Again, thank you everybody for stopping in and chatting tonight. Appreciate it. It's supposed to be an hour. I ran it a little more, but I got to get going. So everybody have a good night. Thanks for stopping in, talking some accessibility. Appreciate it. And we'll see you soon. Check Twitter tomorrow to see if I decide to stream tomorrow. Have a good night.